Morning everybody, thank you Wendy. I was asked to come here this morning and just to say a few words about apprentices and my experiences. It's great that so many of you could make it on an early on a Friday morning, so tribute to you for getting here. In a former life, before I became the Managing Director of the Growth Hub, many years ago, I was a politician. And the two things that you should never give a politician is a microphone and an audience. And we are blessed with both this morning, so I promise I will try and keep this short. But more importantly, I think, for this morning, I started out my working life as an apprentice. And for as long as I can remember, I've been almost evangelical about the importance of vocational training as a career pathway. And it now seems as though we've got a country that has woken up and realised that the need we have to invest in apprenticeships. And, you know, when I became the chief executive of a local authority a few years ago, I was very frustrated that often one of the prerequisites to interviews was people coming before us with a minimum entry level of a degree. And I stripped that away as a minimum requirement because I wanted to have an holistic view of the organisation and see people from a broad spectrum. And we ended up recruiting some wonderful people into the local authority who've gone on to have very fulfilling careers. So we need to be more holistic in the career market about the people that we put before us and we end up recruiting. But more importantly for Coventry and Warwickshire, we've got a strategic economic plan, and that economic plan shows us that over the next decade or more, we have got to replace around 208,000 people within the workplace. 187,000 of those will be simply needed to replace those that are due to retire. So we've got a growing importance on bringing new people into the economy of Coventry and Warwickshire if we want this economy to continue to grow. And it's widely recognised that for a growing business, investment into apprenticeships actually turns out to be a shrewd investment. A well-recruited apprentice, by the end of their third year, can generate between 150 and 300% return on that investment. Apprentices who start with no experience typically generate profit for that company within 18 to 24 months. And the attitude and the support of the employer is absolutely critical. And we know from past experience that change in any sector brings with it some uncertainty. So you'll have plenty of questions this morning about, you know, how much will the levy cost me? What will I pay? What are the barriers to me taking on a young person? That's what this morning is all about, to have your questions answered. I'm grateful to Wendy and the team from the LEP in being here this morning to help, and I hope facilitate those questions and answer them correctly. I hope you leave here inspired enough to be able to take on a young person, change a young person's life, because what it will ultimately do is that investment in your business will help your business grow. And that's what I'm here to encourage. Growth in Coventry and Warwickshire, a prosperous future for the next generation of young people. Take on an apprentice. It's a fulfilling way to grow your business. Thank you, Wendy.
So, without any further ado, we'll talk about what we're going to do. And it's different now. These are the things we're going to cover. Why it's important to you as a business. There has to be a business need for everything, and there is a need for you to do this. So why it's important, what you need to know to be able to move forward with it, what you need to do, and who can help you to do that. So, why it's important to your business. There are skills gaps. They've been identified as a key element in most businesses as a reason why those businesses aren't developing and they're not delivering to their full potential. Not all businesses can attract, and SMEs particularly fall into this group, fully formed individuals. So somebody who comes with all the right skills, all the right attitudes, all the right behaviours to be able to fulfil the role that you want them to. Staff who don't receive development opportunities within an organisation may decide to leave. They may decide to go somewhere else where they can get development. And as your business adapts and changes and grows, you'll notice that you need different skills to be able to develop that business and grow it. So things that change over time, the environment, the attitudes, the needs of other organisations that you supply will be different. So telesales in the past, people taking telephone orders was a big thing. Actually, people just do it online now. So do you need to change the skills of your telephone sales team to be web developers so that they can do stuff through an online process? And increasing your workforce as well as the skills that you need is also something that you want to do. So linking your skills to your business planning and aspirations, what gaps do you have now? If you looked at your organisation, what is it that you are not able to do? What is it that you really need some skills to do that are lacking now? And you know, if you can look at your business for 5 years' time, how do you want it to grow? And what are the skills that you're going to need in 5 years' time? Because now is the time that you should be developing those skills. Now, Coventry and Warwickshire, as Craig alluded to earlier, have identified that a strategic economic plan. They do things across the whole region. And looking at that plan, we've identified that there are already gaps at that level. So those are local and national gaps as well, but there will be some that apply in your businesses. So digital technology, advanced manufacturing and engineering, business support, construction, civil engineering, transport, logistics. All of those already have skills gaps. So if we don't provide the training and education to people now, we're not going to get those massive numbers of new people over the next decade. I think that it's fair to say as well that those jobs as they're replaced and those skills as we need them are at a higher level than they currently are. So when we've done the analysis on the skills needs of the businesses across, people don't think that they will be replacing level 2, which is the sort of lower level of skills, with level 2. They're seeing that actually the skills required are getting higher. So we need to be looking at degree and middle level and less at the lower level. So the whole apprenticeship landscape has changed. A lot of you will remember that up until now, 16 to 19-year-olds, those are your apprenticeship market, you recruit a new one, and you put them through a training program and you educate them and you train them within the workforce as well. And at the end of it, hopefully there's a job for them to get into. That's all changing. The way apprentices are funded is changing. So high payroll companies, those who have a pay bill of more than £3 million, will be expected to pay a levy. We're not going to go into the detail of that. If you are going to pay a levy and you don't understand it, talk to me later and I'll talk you through it. But today we're going to concentrate on people who are not paying the levy. So although you're not paying a levy, you are still entitled to draw down apprenticeship funding. So SMEs will benefit from large organisations paying into a big pot of cash managed by the government that they can then get access to fund the training in their organisations. Other big changes are that you can utilise the funding to train existing staff. So you don't have to go out and recruit a new apprentice. Apprenticeships can apply to people who are already in your organisation. And they don't have to be 16 to 19-year-olds. They can be any age at all. So you can use the apprenticeship funding to train somebody in your organisation who's been doing a role for a period of time or who aspires to another role or who you need to develop new skills in that area to enable your business to develop and grow. Excuse me. So you can claim 10% as a minimum. You pay 10% as the maximum of the training costs of whichever apprenticeship you go for. And there is some extra funding available for particular circumstances. And those are slightly not difficult to understand, but they're very specific to specific cases. So you would need to put the case to a training provider to go through some of them. I've got some case studies to show you a bit later on, which will show some of them. There is additional training. One of the provisos of the apprenticeship programs is that the individuals must come out the other end. If they don't already have level 2 maths and English, then they will come out the other end of this program with level 2 maths and English. But there is additional funding to help you to do that. So the cost of the training assessment is governed by the SFA and the Department of Education. And each apprenticeship is given a cost. So it would be anywhere between £1,500 to £27,000. And that's the amount of money that the government will pay for that particular training. So training providers could charge more than that. And if they do, then you as employers will be responsible for the difference. But I would suggest that most providers will be looking to work within those bands. The higher bands would tend, and not necessarily, but would tend to be at higher levels, and maybe the slightly more technical stuff like engineering, where you need big kit and equipment to be able to provide the training. Apprenticeships are being developed at all levels, so from 2 to 7 are currently developed, and there's talk about, so 7 being a master's level, 6 being undergraduate degree. But beyond that, there is talk about even PhD level of apprenticeship in the workplace. Apprenticeships are designed to be a job role, not a qualification necessarily. So it's a job role that is being apprenticed. And they're being developed across a wide range. Again, the whole list is not yet fully formed. The other rule is that it must be a real job. If you're going to offer an apprenticeship, it has to be a real job. It can't just be something that you've made up and decided that, oh, well, if we call it an apprentice, we can get some training. It has to be a proper job. And the training must last for at least a year. In some cases, it could be well beyond there, and the standards that have been developed will tell you how long it needs to last, or it's expected to last, but it must be at least a year. At least a fifth of the time must be off the job. That doesn't mean day release necessarily. It could mean modular attendance. It could mean 2 or 3 days, 1 month, 2 or 3 days, another month. It could mean that some of the time is spent doing online learning. It doesn't have to be in a classroom, and it doesn't have to be in a college or university setting. The other area that you need to consider is that it should be a higher qualification or a different subject area than the one that the individual is already in. So you could come in with French A-levels and do something still at A-level standard, but that are more vocationally based. You could have a French degree and then do an engineering degree at the same level, degree apprenticeship, but it's a different skill. But if you've got level 2 qualifications, then doing anything at level 3, level 4, level 5 and beyond is absolutely fine. If you're unsure on any of those, then obviously talk to training providers who are there to help. So I've done a couple of cases here. I just want to talk you through some of the things, because the bottom line is very important to small organisations, because it's how they survive from week to week, month to month. So the cost benefit needs to be quite clear. So the case here, you've got your 18-year-old receptionist already. He's already got his level 2 English and maths. He hasn't got any care statements, hasn't got any other areas, but you need him to develop more skills than just being on reception. You need to do finance, you need to do admin, there needs to be a better billing system. There's a lot of things that if you're going to grow as an organisation, you want this individual to take on these responsibilities. So why not turn him into an apprentice? So in order to do that, you need to work out what's it going to cost you, what are you going to get as a result of that. Well, obviously you're going to get additional skills at the end of it, because he's going to develop and train in the admin and finance skills that you need. You don't pay him any different, because he's already on the minimum wage and you have to pay him because he's in a job. The training costs would be £2,500 on the framework that we've got at the moment. So that would mean you would pay 10% as an employer, so £250. That already seems quite cheap for a period of time of training. But the additional contribution, because you've got less than 50 staff and this employee is 18, is that you get an extra £1,000 back. So actually, you're £750 in profit. So you're going to get a surplus back on that. Now, your commitment is that you're going to lose that person for 20% of their working time, but at the end of whenever that working time is, you're going to get a much better equipped individual. So that already seems like a good idea, doesn't it? So, another one. You've got an engineering technician this time and you want to change the level she needs to develop. She's got her level 4, she's been doing the job for a long time. But actually, again, you're growing, you need her to take on projects of her own, you want to increase her skills and abilities, and you want to make her at the next level to manage her own projects and not to just be part of a project team. So again, if you were to undertake a level 6, which is a degree level in automotive manufacturing engineering apprenticeship, costs and benefits. Obviously, the cost is higher. It's a higher level qualification. It's over a longer period, and it's a more technical qualification in that it needs more equipment and things to be able to undergo the training. So you don't change the salary. The point in all of this is they are paid the rate for the job. This is their job. It is a job that they're in for a long period of time, and that bit doesn't change. The training costs, it's a high-level cost of training. So it's £27,000 that the government have said is the funding demand for that. But it's a 5 to 6 year programme, potentially. That may come down. I think they're working on the standards for that one particularly. But at the moment, it's a 5 to 6 year programme. So if you were to put it over 5 to 6 years, the cost obviously reduces significantly on an annual basis. So on an annual basis, you'd be paying £450 to £500 a year for that training, which already is less onerous than to try and stump up 2,700 all at once. So you are going to pay that much, and you're going to put her off the job. But during that period, her skills are going to increase. She's going to be able to take on more projects. You're going to be able to, if it's a charge out rate, you're going to charge her out at a higher rate because she's going to be better qualified. So again, looking at people that you've got in your business already and not just thinking about the 16 to 19-year-olds, who have you got in your businesses that you can develop further, that can get more skills, that can help your businesses to grow and develop? So a final case then that I've got here for you to look at. And this is a traditional apprentice in the old money, if you like. So you want to actually recruit a 16 to 19-year-old and put them on a programme. You can appoint them on a lower apprentice rate still. So £3.40 an hour is the current apprentice rate. So you're going to be paying a salary of £7,000 a year. The training costs for this particular qualification as a surveying technician, £9,000 a year. That's what the Department for Education and SFA have decided is the funding band for that particular qualification at a level 3. So you are not going to pay anything. Because they're 16 to 19, you're not going to pay any training costs at all. You're just paying the salary. You get some additional support from the government because they're 16 to 19. The government recognises that 16 to 19-year-olds may have more challenges in terms of managing in the workplace than older employees, so they give an additional amount of money. This particular individual doesn't have basic skills, so you get some additional funding for basic skills training as well. So again, it's in theory, again, you're obviously paying the salary and you're obviously committing to off-job training time. But at the end of it, you're going to have a qualified person who's trained, who knows your business, who's able to help you develop your business particularly. Okay. So, other things that you need to know is that the training element of the job has to be provided by somebody on the register of accredited training providers. Now, because the whole system is in formation at the moment, there's a lot of information on government websites. We're still interpreting at provider level, and we're still developing and helping develop lots and lots of different apprenticeship standards. The Register of Accredited Training Providers is not yet fully formed. So lots of training providers have applied to be on it, but the final list is not yet out, and the list will change on a regular basis. So more providers will apply to go on it, they'll be assessed and accredited, and they will be put on it. But in order to access the funding, you have to access a training provider who is on that register of apprenticeship accredited training providers. It will include universities, it will include further education providers, it will include independent training providers. There will be a whole range and a myriad of people for you to have a look through. The government, again, are trying to make it easier by developing a website on apprentices where you can go in, you can search on your preferred specialism, and you can find who the training providers are in that area, how far away they are from you or from where your place of business is, and you can go through and narrow down who you might want to talk to further in that area. There are steps through on the Gov website, Take On an Apprentice and the overview, and you are able to click through that. Parts of the site are still in beta testing, so you will be able to access bits of it and not all of it. And I appreciate it's difficult that it's not completely fully formed, because all of this starts in April. You're able to take on apprentices from the 1st of May. So it would be nice if it was fully formed, but there's been a lot of change in government recently. So you need to find what it is you think you want to do, find a training provider that's on the register, talk to the training provider and agree a plan for your apprentice. You need to check your eligibility for how much money you are going to get. And again, training providers are learning as well, and there are a number of them here today that I'm sure could talk you through some of those processes for their particular organisations. If you're recruiting a new one, there is also an opportunity through the government website for you to recruit online as well. So you can put your advertisement up and people will hopefully apply for your apprenticeship. You do need to have a contract in place for an apprentice, and if you are converting an existing employee, you will need to change their terms and conditions, or at least their job title, and have some sort of formal agreement that shows that they are an apprentice. So, the agreement between the three parties, you will have an agreement with you, your training provider, and your apprentice if you are an SME. And throughout the whole process, it's led by you, the employer. The whole point of the changing structure of the apprenticeship programs was that employers felt that their needs were not necessarily being met, that the jobs that they wanted their staff to do weren't necessarily being served by the qualifications or the process that was on offer. That was feedback to government, and so government changed the way and said, okay, employers, you are now in the driving seat. You are defining the standard that you think your apprentices should meet, and in doing that definition of applying the standard, you are in the driving seat when it comes to employing the apprentice, guiding that. There will be an external endpoint assessment, which is not done by you and is not done by your training provider, but done by somebody else that says, yes, this apprentice is now competent. The training has been successful off-job and on-job. They are now a competent engineer. They're now a competent surveyor, whatever the role is that we put them into. Endpoint assessors are also required to be registered and approved of by government. So, those are the things I think that you need to know. It's a very short and whistle-stop tour, and we will have hopefully plenty of time for questions at the end. But what do you actually need to do now if you want to go away and either convert one of your existing employees into an apprentice or recruit a new apprentice? So the first thing really is, if it's going to be business-led, you need to look at your business and decide which bits of it need to grow skills, which bits of it need to develop, where you're going to be in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, even 1-2 years' time. What are the skills that you want your existing staff or you need to bring in from external? What is it that you need? Look at what future roles you might have. You might want to change. I mentioned earlier the telesales to web designers or advisors. How are you going to do that? What are you going to change? And how does that role fit in with one of the new standards that have been developed for apprentices? If you can do all of that and then look and take a picture, talk to people like the Growth Hub, training providers, other people will help you to develop your business plan, if you like, for the next 5 years to be able to say where you need to go and what skills you need. Identify an apprenticeship standard, again, working in partnership, preferably with a provider, and recruit a new one or change the terms and conditions that you've got. You must work with an accredited training provider, and you must look at how you're going to be assessing. And again, you'll probably do that with the training provider. The endpoint assessors, I don't think, and somebody in the audience I'm sure will tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think the endpoint assessors have yet been identified or accredited in any way. I'm not even sure that we've been asked for applications for endpoint assessments.
22 accredited already, endpoint assessments, it's on the government website as well. So by no means the full spectrum yet, but they are starting.
So there are 22, I'll just say for the benefit of the right, there are 22 endpoint assessors already identified, but that's nowhere near enough to assess every apprenticeship across the country. So I'm sure that there'll be more process in place to develop those. There is paperwork, there is always paperwork, and I know it's the bane of SMEs' lives that to get anything you have to fill in a myriad of triplicate information to get that funding. Training providers are on hand, they will help, the Growth Hub will help. There isn't a way that we can take it off of you and do it for you, because you will have to be responsible for delivering part of your training to your member of staff within your organisation, and you're going to have to keep records of what that is, and you're going to have to keep records to claim the funding back and make sure that it goes to the right place. But it is important, it definitely is important. So, in terms of other people who can help you, there are facts available from the Skills Funding Agency web pages on the Register of Apprenticeship Training Providers or Accredited Training Providers and assessment organisations and all the rules. It's not the most easy website to find your way around, and there's still, because we're in a transition phase of the old system, which were called apprenticeship frameworks, and the new system, which are called apprenticeship standards, we have to still retain information on there about the old system. So unless you know what you're looking for, you might be looking at old information. So it's not the easiest to navigate, but I would just say talk to somebody from the Growth Hub, talk to a training provider. They will have more up-to-date knowledge of where to look. Talk to me, talk to the LEP, talk to anybody, but just as long as you're talking to us to try and get more apprentices through, that would be fantastic. And the people that can help you, the Growth Hub, so Craig, who was here earlier, Coventry and Warwickshire Growth Hub have a team of advisors, particularly in relation to growing and developing businesses. This is part of that growth. Their advisors will have more information, be able to put you in the right direction. Any of the training providers that are here at the back, and the only ones that are here today are further education and higher education. There are loads of training providers, independent training providers, and the Chamber, sorry, I should mention the Chamber as well, on behalf of independent training providers. We couldn't obviously fit them all in the same room at the same time today, but their details will be listed on the government website if they are accredited. But they do know more, so do talk to them. So before we move on to some questions and answers around the room, just some key points to take away. And I think these are the fundamentals, and the one that I keep trying to get across. It's not just for new staff, it's for existing staff. You can use the funding to train people already in your organisation, and that's a really big difference to the old system. Second really big difference is it's not just for young people. It's for anybody in your organisation, and it can go all the way up to level 7 at the moment, and potentially to levels 8 and 9 as well. So you're not just looking at basic craft, basic technical, it's across the whole piece. You can use it to professionalise your teams. People may have been doing a role for a while but never have achieved the qualification. they may be able to convert that by becoming an apprentice and gaining that qualification and professionalism within your team. Again, I say take advice from other people. Don't necessarily, not all SMEs particularly, have got the resource or the time to lock somebody away, a training or HR professional away in a room to define your apprenticeship strategy for the next 5 years. And we absolutely appreciate that. So do utilise the funded places that you can go to get information and advice. And it doesn't have to be too hard. Don't put it in the too hard box. Talk to somebody. You might at the end of it decide that it's too hard. We do hope not, but we can help you through it. But try to embrace it and try to think how you can best use this opportunity of applying government funding to your organisation. And just keep doing them. Keep doing more and more.
Thank you. It's Roger Coy. We're architects. Can I ask, has the professional institutes been engaged in this process? Because they're often the barrier to apprentices being trained. And obviously, if they're not engaged, then we're going to be at a loss to know what level of apprentice or qualification they're likely to achieve that's going to be helpful to our organisations.
Okay, yes, they have. And I mentioned just in passing there have been trailblazer groups. So in order to set the new standards, the government said employers need to be in the driving seat. So a trailblazer group is a group of organisations, employers, who get themselves together and say, okay, we're now going to look at, say, architecture. I'm not sure there is one in architecture yet, but let's go for engineering. We're going to look at automotive engineering, and we're going to define the standard for a level 6 automotive engineer. Within that, they will be looking to have the professional bodies represented in that trailblazer group. And it's possible that the professional organisations will apply and be endpoint assessors so that they have the standard that will be equivalent to what they may have asked for in the past. They will be able to assess that standard. So those trailblazer groups that have been set up mainly have had those, and where they haven't, they might run into some trouble later, but yes, they mainly have had.
Perhaps it's around the quality of training providers. You know, sometimes it sounds good on paper. Is there any way there is a rating or there is like a TripAdvisor on the quality of training that providers, or there's a way maybe to sort of check on, you know, what the quality is? Because there are a lot of training providers around, and we've been disappointed so many times. So it's just really about how can we, as employers, make sure that it doesn't just sound good on paper.
Okay, I can do a bit of that, I think. So the Register of Accredited Training Providers has a degree of assessment in it, and that's what the government are assessing. For training providers who are governed by Ofsted, there are quality ratings that are applied to those providers. Would anybody from the provider area like to supplement that for me?
On that register, you'll be able to see the success rate for the particular occupation you've been looking for, the learner satisfaction rate and the employer satisfaction rate. So all of that will be available to you to be able to check.
The other thing I would say is take up references. Ask the training provider who they work with and talk to people. You wouldn't buy anything else without finding out a bit about it, and you wouldn't just accept some ratings off a government website. Build that relationship. That they should be investing in you, not just giving you something that looks good on paper. They should be talking to you, and they should be openly sharing with you people they already work with, so you can go and talk to other businesses who've worked with that training provider. And I'd encourage everybody to do that when you're selecting a training provider.
And there are areas where there are training providers that won't necessarily be in your location. Some specialist training, there'll only be certain training providers that do that. So you may have to be looking at places further afield where you may not necessarily have accessed before. That hopefully will change as the apprenticeship standards develop and as training providers get up and running to deliver on those. And you know, at the moment, there aren't enough standards for the number of jobs that exist. they're going to keep rising and rising and rising. There are trailblazer groups. If you're interested in looking at a trailblazer group or setting up a trailblazer group where there isn't a standard already, then again, talk to us and we can put you in touch with people as to... It shouldn't just be about large organisations deciding what an engineer looks like. Small organisations should be able to contribute to that too, and I know they have to the engineering standards, the automotive standards, but certainly for other professions and organisations as well. If you want to contribute to the development of those standards and there isn't already a standard, we can put you in touch with people who might be able to help you. Do any of my provider colleagues want to add anything to what I've said today? Obviously, it's a very quick whistle-stop, this is what you need to know, this is what you need to do for small businesses. Is there anything else that you think businesses should know, need to know, might want to know that I haven't covered?
I think an apprenticeship shouldn't be sort of on top of what you already do in your organisation. The training needs to be embedded within what you're doing. So if you're looking at the costs, it might be that you've got something that you already offer as an internal training programme that could quite, if you partner up with your provider that you choose, to look and see if you can map it in. So it wouldn't potentially be an additional cost. It could be quite a saving to you. Some organisations have in-house management programmes. Well, probably a lot of that is already covered in a management apprenticeship. So you can sort of adjust it to suit. So it could be a big cost saving to an organisation, as well as getting the return on your investment, which is probably going to be greater.
Yeah. So thank you all very much for your time. Have a bit more breakfast and take on an apprentice. Thank you.